The Boys is one of those shows that showed up at the perfect time. Everybody was exhausted. Marvel had wrapped up most of the characters people cared about. DC was busy collapsing like somebody built the entire universe out of wet cardboard, and audiences wanted something different. Then The Boys arrived and immediately announced itself by having a speedster turn Hughie's girlfriend into strawberry jam within the first few minutes. That's how you know a show isn't interested in easing you into anything. It walks up, punches you in the face, and says, "Welcome to the universe." And honestly, that first season was incredible. Not because there was blood everywhere or because everybody was saying bad words every 2 seconds. The thing that made it work was the characters. Every single person had flaws. Nobody was some generic hero. Everybody was damaged. Everybody had selfish motivations. Even the good guys were capable of terrible things. But despite that, you understood them. Hughie wanted justice. Butcher wanted revenge. Mother's Milk wanted closure. Frenchie wanted redemption. Starlight wanted to do genuine good. They all had believable reasons for why they made their decisions, and that made the story interesting. The other thing that made the show special was the tension. These people weren't superheroes. They were regular humans trying to fight walking nuclear bombs. Every confrontation felt dangerous. Whenever Homelander entered a room, the atmosphere changed immediately. You felt uncomfortable. Not because he was screaming or throwing punches. Half the time he was smiling. Anthony Starr somehow mastered the art of looking friendly while also giving you the feeling that he might vaporize everyone in the room because somebody breathed too loudly. The guy deserves an award for the amount of facial expressions he manages to fit into 5 seconds. Seriously, every time Homelander is on screen, everybody else feels like background noise. He's terrifying, funny, pathetic, and tragic all at once. That's not easy to pull off. And that's kind of why the decline of the show hurts so much. Because The Boys didn't become bad overnight. It slowly transformed into a parody of itself. You know how somebody starts making jokes and then gets addicted to hearing people laugh, so they keep escalating until they're basically performing circus tricks? That's what happened. The writers became obsessed with topping themselves. Season 1 had shocking moments that served the story. Robin's death established the world. The deep assaulting Starlight showed how corrupt the Seven really was. Everything had a purpose, but eventually it started feeling like the writers sat down and asked themselves, how do we traumatize the audience this week? Instead of asking, how do we move the story forward? And there's a huge difference between those two questions. Take Herogasm, for example. People acted like it was going to destroy television forever. The marketing made it sound like viewers would need therapy afterward. Then the episode came out and people reacted like somebody hyped up the apocalypse and delivered a mildly inconvenient rainstorm. That's when I started noticing the problem. The showrunner seemed weirdly proud of putting bizarre sexual stuff into the series. Like, congratulations, man. You discovered that penises exist. You're not exactly breaking scientific boundaries here. Eventually, entire scenes started existing solely to shock people. The termite scene was funny for about 10 seconds. Then it just kept going, and going, and going. Meanwhile, time that could have been spent developing characters got wasted on jokes that feel like something written by 13-year-olds who discovered Reddit for the first time. And unfortunately, the character writing started suffering too. Black Noir is one of the best examples. Season 3 actually gave him depth. We learned about his dreams. We learned how Vought exploited him. We saw the trauma he experienced. We saw his imaginary cartoon friends helping him process everything. It was bizarre, but it worked. It looked like the show was building towards something meaningful. Maybe he'd finally stand up for himself. Maybe he'd confront Soldier Boy. Maybe he'd have some emotional resolution. Nope. Homelander punches through him and he's gone. That's it. All that setup for absolutely nothing. It felt less like a conclusion and more like the writers accidentally deleted an entire storyline. And then there's Hughie. Poor Hughie. I genuinely think Hughie might have suffered one of the worst cases of character assassination I've ever seen. In Season 1, his arc was simple and effective. He starts off passive, he avoids confrontation, he struggles to stand up for himself. Then tragedy forces him to change. Throughout the season, he becomes stronger. not physically, emotionally. He learns to fight back. He learns to make difficult choices. He becomes his own person. Great arc, nice and clean. Then the writers apparently forgot all of it. Every season they reset him. Suddenly he's insecure again. Suddenly he's weak again. Suddenly he needs to relearn the exact same lesson he learned 3 seasons ago. It feels like watching somebody graduate from college and then immediately enroll in kindergarten again. Season 3 was especially strange. They tried convincing us Huey was some toxically masculine guy who couldn't handle powerful women. Which was bizarre, because one of his earliest scenes with Starlight literally established the opposite. He thought her powers were awesome. He never cared about being stronger than her. The show had to basically rewrite his personality to create conflict, and that's when you know something has gone wrong. If your storyline requires pretending previous scenes never happened, maybe the storyline isn't very good. Starlight also suffers from repetition. Every season she's having an identity crisis. Every season she's questioning religion. Every season she's struggling with public perception. And don't get me wrong, these are interesting topics. The first time, maybe even the second time. But eventually, you start feeling like you're trapped inside some strange time loop where nobody remembers what happened last year. And the firecracker reveal felt especially weird. We're supposed to believe Starlight was secretly this horrible bully when the show spent 3 seasons portraying her as one of the most compassionate characters in the entire cast. It felt completely out of nowhere. Then we have the Deep. Good Lord, the Deep. The writers genuinely have no idea what to do with this man. Every season follows the same pattern. He humiliates himself. He feels sad. He pretends to grow. He immediately regresses. Repeat forever. At this point, I think his octopus has had more development than he has. They keep treating his scenes like they're building towards something important, but they never go anywhere. He's like a loading screen that never finishes. Frenchie and Kimiko aren't much better. I swear every season introduces somebody from their tragic past. Then everybody cries. Then they discuss trauma. Then somebody leaves. Then nothing changes. It's like the writers discovered these characters had sad backstories and decided to mine them forever. The same conversations happen repeatedly. The same conflicts appear repeatedly. Eventually you stop caring because you know none of it matters. Mother's Milk has the exact same issue. Every season he wants to leave. Every season he gets dragged back. Every season his family suffers. Every season he regrets everything. It's basically Groundhog Day, except Bill Murray gets replaced with anxiety and daddy issues. Thankfully, Homelander remains incredible. He's honestly carrying the show on his back. The guy is fascinating. He's this terrifying monster with godlike powers, but deep down he's also a pathetic child desperate for approval. Everything about him stems from his upbringing. He was raised in a lab. He never experienced love. He never experienced affection. He became this broken person obsessed with validation because he spent his entire life searching for something he never received. That's tragic. If Homelander had grown up with an actual family, maybe he would have become Superman instead of the world's most dangerous man-child. And Season 4 introducing aging as his newest fear was genius. For someone who sees himself as a god, growing older is basically cosmic horror. Butcher remains fantastic too. He's one of the best anti-heroes on television because he's constantly balancing between humanity and monstrosity. The difference between him and Homelander is that Butcher occasionally does good things because he genuinely cares. Not often. Maybe once every century. But those moments matter. His relationship with Huey, Ryan, and Becca brings out the parts of him that still resemble a human being. Without those relationships, he'd probably become worse than Homelander, which honestly feels like where the show is heading. Another major problem is the lack of tension. Remember Season 1? The boys had to outsmart everyone. They couldn't fight Supes directly. They used strategy. They used blackmail. They used technology. The translucent storyline remains one of the smartest arcs in the entire series. Every problem led to another problem. Every victory created a new obstacle. The pacing was fantastic. It felt like a thriller. Nowadays, the solution to everything is basically, let's shoot them and hope for the best. Characters survive things they absolutely shouldn't survive. Cars flip 20 times and everyone walks away with a scratch. Powers change whenever the plot demands it. Homelander's hearing works only when it's convenient. Newman's powers work only when it's convenient. Consistency has left the building, and the plot itself feels stuck. That's probably the biggest issue. The Boys has one central goal: kill Homelander, destroy Vought. That's the story. But because Amazon wants more seasons, the writers have to keep delaying everything. Every major consequence gets reversed. Every status quo change gets undone. Starlight becomes a traitor. Never mind. Homelander almost dies. Never mind. Somebody discovers a new weapon. Never mind. It's like watching somebody repeatedly press the reset button. Nothing truly changes, because if things changed, the show would end. And honestly, that's probably the saddest part. I don't think the writers are talentless. Season 1 proves they know what they're doing. Homelander proves they know what they're doing. But somewhere along the way, they became obsessed with keeping the machine running instead of finishing the story. They wanted bigger explosions, more gore, more shock value, more seasons. But bigger doesn't automatically mean better. Sometimes all you're doing is putting fireworks on top of a birthday cake and wondering why nobody talks about the flavor anymore. Despite all my complaints, I don't hate The Boys. I wouldn't spend this much time complaining if I hated it. Hate is easy. Disappointment is harder. Because disappointment means you remember how good something used to be. I remember watching season 1 and thinking, this might become one of my favorite shows ever. I remember genuinely caring about every character. I remember being nervous every time Homelander appeared. I remember feeling like anybody could die. Now I mostly watch out of obligation and hope. Hope that season 5 somehow sticks the landing. Hope that these characters receive proper conclusions. Hope that all the repetitive storylines finally lead somewhere meaningful. Because beneath all the weird sex jokes, all the unnecessary shock value, all the repeated arcs, and all the pacing problems, the foundation is still there. Homelander is still incredible. Butcher is still incredible. Anthony Starr is still putting on an all-time performance. There are still flashes of brilliance hidden underneath all the nonsense. Which is why season 5 might be the most important season in the show's history. Because endings matter. People forgive a lot when the finale delivers. And if the writers somehow pull off an amazing conclusion, I'll gladly eat my words. But if they mess this up, then The Boys won't be remembered as one of the greatest superhero shows ever made. It'll be remembered as another example of a series that stayed at the party long after everyone else went home.